Earlier this year, we did a review of the OBSBOT Tail 2 camera and came away very impressed. Well, OBSBOT just released a new firmware update for the Tail 2 that adds several new features that can help in production situations we all deal with. Shooting in low light or mixed light spaces, managing compression when streaming, and handling exposure changes across different shots. But before we look at each of these new features, let's start with how to get this update on your camera. To install the update, open the OBSBOT Center app on your computer with your Tail 2 connected. Go into the More section and scroll down to the Firmware Update section. After checking the current version that's installed, you can then click on Update, and a window will pop up listing everything included in the update. Click OK at the bottom, and the update will start. When it's finished, you'll see a message telling you that it was downloaded successfully, and then the camera will perform the update and restart automatically. Once you're updated, you'll have 4 new image control features available and an upgrade to gesture tracking. So let's start with the one you'll notice immediately in low light situations, night view mode. Dealing with low light is always a challenge, whether you're shooting backstage, at a small venue, or anywhere where the lighting just isn't doing you any favors. The Tail 2 now has a night view mode designed to boost the brightness and detail you can get in those darker shots. Night view brightens the shadow areas while keeping noise under control. To switch it on, open the image settings in OBSBOT Center and enable night view mode. You'll see the image lift immediately. I've set up a small demo scene here in the studio, a mini stage with a few props and 2 small figurines, lit only by a dim overhead light. On the left side of the screen here, you're seeing that scene with night view turned off. On the right, it's turned on. And you can see right away how much more detail comes back with night view on. Night view lets you capture shots that would otherwise be too dark or too noisy to really use. Well, it's always best to have a scene properly lit. Night view mode provides a great safety net when you have to work with lighting that isn't ideal. Even a great-looking shot can soften once it's uploaded or streamed. The compression involved can flatten any fine details that you capture, especially in lines and textures. The Tail 2's new streaming mode can help preserve those details. It adjusts how the Tail 2 processes an image, so more of the original sharpness and character of it survives compression. To turn it on, open the image settings in OBSBOT Center app and enable streaming mode. The image will brighten slightly, and that's just the optimized processing being applied. So here, we're using the same small demo stage we used before, this time with an added camera chart to provide some finer details to the shot. On the left is a shot of the demo stage with streaming mode turned off, and on the right, we have a shot with it turned on. And because you're watching this through YouTube's own compression, you're seeing the actual difference here. The version on the right keeps the fine lines in the chart a bit sharper and delivers better contrast across the whole frame. Based on what you're shooting, streaming mode can make a noticeable quality difference once your video goes online. So now we're looking at setting white balance. And for this one, we're using the same mini demo stage, but this time with a tricky lighting setup, mixed color temperatures. The light on the right side is set to 2500 degrees Kelvin, and the one on the left is set to 7500 degrees Kelvin. Now that's a huge color temperature difference and represents a pretty extreme mixed lighting situation, but an ideal one for what we want to demo here. Now one way to handle this is to use auto white balance. When the Tail 2 is set to auto mode, it keeps adjusting the white balance as we move between the figures on the left and right. And that means the look of the shots will shift with each one of those moves. Now, one push white balance provides an alternative way to handle lighting like this. Instead of constantly shifting the white balance, it lets you set a neutral reference once and then lock in that color reference for the entire scene. So here's how we set it up. First off, the feature is not available in the OBSBOT Center app, so I'm using the OBSBOT Start app on my phone to control it. And under the white balance controls, I select one push. I now place a gray card in the center of the scene so the camera has a clean neutral reference that's pulling from both lighting sources. And with the gray card filling most of the frame, I tap where I want to set the new white balance. The camera measures the overall lighting at that point and locks in a stable color temperature based on that compromise reference. And with that set, the Tail 2 won't have color drift between the shots. So here's the comparison. On the left is our shot using auto white balance, and on the right is the shot using one push white balance. From the auto white balance shot, you'll see the image warm up and cool down each time we switch between figures. From the one push white balance shot, the look of the image stays more consistent. To make this clearer, here are stills from the auto white balance footage focusing on each of the figures in the demo scene. Even though we're looking in here at the same part of the beaker in both images, the colors shift noticeably depending on which side of the stage that we're shooting. I've overlaid the hex values here so you can see how much they change. And while it's a compromise, one push white balance is an easy way to lock in accurate color, especially in mixed lighting environments. When your camera zooms in, less light reaches the sensor. It's just the physics behind lens design. But it means your image can get darker right in the middle of a shot. The Tail 2's Auto Brightness Compensation mode fixes that by adjusting ISO automatically as you zoom so the brightness stays consistent. To turn it on, open the exposure settings in the OBSBOT Center app and enable Auto Brightness Compensation. As you zoom, watch the ISO value. It updates automatically to keep the exposure even. So with the addition of Auto Brightness Compensation, your zoom moves can look consistent and professional. Gesture control has been one of the Tail 2's standout features, especially if you're working solo and want to make framing adjustments or start recording or auto tracking. Before this update, it already worked well, but depending on your lighting or camera position, it could sometimes take a moment to react. With the new firmware, gesture recognition feels a bit faster and a little more confident. Not a major shift, but a really nice refinement. Now these improvements are built right into the firmware. There's no new toggle or menu option required to enable it. To check the changes out, we tested both the tracking and zoom gestures here in the studio under our standard lighting, with the Tail 2 positioned about 12 feet away from me on set. For the tracking test, I began by holding up the tracking gesture, and the camera picked it up and quickly locked on. When I slid from one side of the studio desk to the other, the Tail 2 followed smoothly without losing me. And when I used the gesture again, tracking stopped immediately. The behavior was similar to what we had before, just slightly quicker to respond to the gestures and very stable overall. Nice to see with the camera now 12 feet away. For the zoom test, I started with the camera set at about 3 times zoom, a medium framing of me at the desk. I then showed the zoom gesture, and the Tail 2 zoomed into its preset close-up at around 5 times zoom. And when I repeated the zoom gesture, it zoomed all the way out to a full 1x wide shot. While zooming back out to a full wide shot is how the gesture is currently designed, I'd personally love an option for it to return to whatever zoom level you were at before zooming in. Or even to expand this beyond zoom and give us 2 full presets the gesture could toggle between. I can imagine a lot of workflows where that kind of flexibility would be really helpful. And as with the tracking test, the Tail 2 responded to the zoom gesture cleanly and felt just a bit more responsive than before. So, while these aren't dramatic changes, the gesture controls remain very dependable and now feel a little more responsive, making this a solid incremental update. This firmware update brings a set of improvements that can have a real impact on how you use the Tail 2 day to day. Night view mode helps you get usable shots in spaces that are just too dim for a normal camera setup. Streaming mode keeps more of your details when your video gets compressed online. One push white balance gives you consistent color even when the lighting is all over the place. Auto brightness compensation keeps your exposure steady when you zoom in. And the upgraded gesture control makes hand-free operation faster and more dependable. And what's exciting is that OBSBOT isn't done yet. They've already shared some of what's coming next. There'll be a new hybrid zoom control that will give you smoother transitions between optical and digital zoom. They're talking about more advanced image adjustments with gamma correction. And they're also talking about full timecode integration for multi-camera shoots. And they even mentioned a low latency mode designed to make the Tail 2 feel more responsive during live productions. So if you already own a Tail 2, we would definitely install this firmware update. The new tools that it adds can make a noticeable difference to your production quality. And OBSBOT continues to move this camera forward in a way that honestly keeps impressing us. We spent a lot of time testing the Tail 2, and each update has made it more capable and really more production ready. I'm John Mahoney, this is Streaming Alchemy, and thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.